Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host. I'm talking to you guys from Chicago. It's already midnight here in Chicago, which means in Delaware it would be 1 a.m. So it's really very late. So if I fall asleep while I'm talking to you, please be tolerant and patient with me. But because I've been traveling, so I came from Delaware to Chicago. There's a big conference here tomorrow. I'm giving a talk tomorrow, actually on Indian Muslims. So when I come back, I will share information about the conference. But when I landed, I saw Peter Navarro's tweets in which the man has gone completely mad. Peter Navarro has gone completely mad. And so I saw his series of 9 tweets. Thousands of people have watched it. It's obviously engendered, and a lot of people in India have attacked it and criticized it. But I thought I will still give you my take about this. I'm calling this show today in Peter Navarro's honor as Trump's hitman, Peter the Moron. I think that is what we should call him from now on, Peter the Moron. Well, he does make a couple of good points, but the rest of it is all absolutely rubbish. He is trying to scapegoat India for Donald Trump's failures, and some of the arguments that he makes are just childish and nonsensical, and I'm going to tear them apart here. So the first thing, let me point out that at one point, Peter Navarro was a decent scholar. He got his, I think, PhD in economics from Harvard. He was teaching at a prestigious university in California. I think it was University of California, Irvine. And then apparently in the 1985 onwards, he saw that some of his used to teach in the business schools, or some of his MBA students were not getting jobs. And so he started blaming China. And since then, he has been anti-globalization, anti-China, and he just wanted to make sure that he feels that all of America's economic problems are because of China. But as advisor to Donald Trump, he served in the first term with Donald Trump, and then actually went to jail because he refused to testify against Donald Trump with the January 6th inquiry. So he went to jail. So he's proved his loyalty to Donald Trump. But if he was so anti-China, why is he targeting India? India is not responsible for the economic problems of the United States. So nevertheless, these are the points that he's trying to make. So I have a few points that I want to broadly address first. And then after that, I will talk about some specific elements of his tweets. His tweets has 9 items on it, and I want to talk about 4 or 5 items which I think are the crux of his argument, and I want to basically tear that apart. Hi, Anurag. Nice to see that you have joined us. After that, I will take a few questions and read some of your comments. So the first point that I want to make is he's trying to paint this as India's war or Modi's war. Let me tell you, it is Biden's war. It is a Biden's war, and both Joe Biden and Donald Trump in his first term gave a lot of weapons to Ukraine. So Ukraine was being primed to become a member of NATO since 2008, or even roughly about that. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and after that, there was no justification for NATO, but NATO kept expanding, as you all know. It went on and on and on, and just drove the Russians to go to war. So one reason for the war is NATO expansion, Europe's vision and American support for that, or American vision and European support for that. But nevertheless, one of the critical reasons for Putin's invasion of Ukraine is to stop the continuous expansion of NATO. And the second reason is he wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. And as Zbigniew Brzezinski once said, that Russia is not an empire without Ukraine. So Putin wants to take, in all of these calculations, if you go back and read all the literature on the war, India's name doesn't come. Okay. So India has absolutely zero responsibility for this war, and I think the West, as well as Putin, are responsible. In fact, I would place, like Professor John Mearsheimer, a greater responsibility for this war on the West. They forced Russia to attack Ukraine by continuously expanding NATO and designating Russia as NATO's enemy. In fact, when Joe Biden became president at the Munich conference on security, Kamala Harris went and basically advocated for Ukraine to join NATO. Remember, it was just then that I did this show in January of that year and predicted that Russia was going to attack Ukraine, and Russia did so in later half of the February. So first thing that I would like to do is teach some history to Peter Navarro. It is Biden's war and not Modi's war. It is the West's war, not Modi's or India's war. It is a war of choice. If the West had not provided literally billions and billions and billions of dollars of weapons and aid to Ukraine, this war would have been over long ago. The fear that thousands and thousands of Ukrainians are dying is because the war is prolonging. They should have made a ceasefire. There was an opportunity to conduct a ceasefire when Turkey hosted them. It's the Americans who walked away from it. They could have had an understanding, and now they're going to get a deal worse than the deal they could have got in Turkey 2 or 3 years ago. The second thing that I want to say is that Donald Trump repeatedly campaigned saying that he would put an end to this war in 24 hours. He has completely, utterly failed to end this war or the Gaza war. He's just BSing away, and nobody's calling him except the Democrats to some extent, who themselves are like a big-time losers now. And then, of course, conversations. He's been just claiming, and this 7 months have passed since he's become president, and he's not been able to do this in spite of basically spreading, the red carpet for Putin and elevating him to such a great stature. He has still not got ceasefire. In fact, if you remember, he said that this week there was going to be a joint session or joint bilateral between Putin and Zelensky. Nothing has happened so far. So Donald Trump, forget about ending the war, is not even able to arrange a Zelensky meeting with Putin. And so the frustration, I guess, that the administration is feeling at their failure, they are making India the scapegoat. Now, that is a source of worry to India as to why they are picking on India alone. And that's a different conversation, and I've been having that conversation. It is a failure of Indian diplomacy that they got selected for to some extent, but it is also Donald Trump's anger and frustration. Yes, India is the second biggest buyer of Russian oil, no doubt, and there are some Indians like Ambani's who are making a lot of money. They are profiteering. But who is buying the oil from Ambani's and Indians? It's European Union. European Union is just as responsible, if not more, than India for Russia's economy to survive. Yes, China is the biggest buyer of oil and other products. China's imports from Russia are over $120 billion. India's are in the 60, like half of what China borrows. And then Europeans are also borrowing more, importing more from Russia and so on. In fact, if Donald Trump is very upset about it, he should have actually sanctioned Europeans, because the Europeans have an interest in this war. Don't the Europeans keep saying that we want Ukraine to become part of European Union, Ukraine to become part of NATO, Russia is a threat to Europe? So why is Europe sustaining its own threat? India has no risk from this war. It has no national interest in the war, whether the war ends or continues. So the stakes are much higher for Europe, but they're still buying oil from Russia. So Trump should get his own ducks in a row before he goes after India. Okay? This whole business of trying to blame India is kind of ridiculous. I mean, there are lots of things that you can blame the Modi administration for: prolonging the negotiations on the deal, not agreeing to certain concessions that the US is demanding, not giving Donald Trump even a little bit of credit for the ceasefire. All of that you can maybe complain about it, but to blame India for this is rubbish. And what is also interesting is that Peter Navarro is not like a cabinet member, or he doesn't have any secretary's position or anything. He's just an advisor to Donald Trump on economy and trade. But he has become the geopolitical hitman for Trump. And let me tell you, the reason why he's chosen and not Scott Bessent or Howard Lutnick or Rubio, who's the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, or even J.D. Vance, who are not the hitman. They chose the guy who is the lowest rank, and he's the easiest guy to dump. If Donald Trump decides that he wants to patch up with India, the first thing he's going to do is blame Peter Moron and fire him. That's why I'm calling him a moron, because he's risking himself again for Donald Trump. Well, let's look at some of these are the broad points that I wanted to make. And of course, I also want to tell people that India's first quarter results was spectacular. India grew by 7.8%. We will get into the details later when I get back to Delaware. I will invite some economists and we will take a closer look at that number. But right now, Donald Trump, who accused the Indian economy of being basically a dead economy, he must have got a major surprise that India's economy has grown faster than it has in the last 2 years, at least in this quarter. Maybe by the end of the year, it will still come down to 6.2, 6.5. We will see. It could be largely because of the massive exports of I-20s. I actually did a review of India's first quarter, which is the second quarter of the year, April to June, a couple of 2-3 weeks ago, because we had got the trade. India's trade went up by 47%. So take a look at it. I have done that a few weeks ago already, and now the details about the domestic aspects of the quarter is out, and we will talk about it. But nevertheless, the headlines must be coming as a shock, at least to the Trump administration. And they must be looking quite foolish, calling India's economy a dead economy, more or less, and then looking at the number, and that says, oh, hell, it is 7.8%. You can argue about the details as to what it means, etc., the same way that you can argue about US growth rate, which was at 3%. So now let's look at some of the tweets that he has done. He has 9 tweets. I'm going to first show you his second tweet, which is the key. So this is the argument he's making, and this is the tweet which earns him the title Peter the Moron. He's saying, here's how the India-Russia oil mathematic works. This is what he's saying. American consumers buy Indian goods while India keeps out US exports. That's fine. That explains the 50% deficit. We all know that before Donald Trump got elected the second time, America's average tariffs on India were 3%, and India's average tariffs on America were 17%, and India was completely blocking basically agricultural dairy. There's no secret about it. Everybody knows. So that is the reason why there is a $50 billion deficit. That's not enough. I mean, the other reason is because India is exporting goods worth $87 billion that Americans want to buy. Americans want to buy Indian jewels, all the generic drugs, 6% of the total in terms of cost, but 47% in terms of volume is the 47% of all generic drugs to the US come from India. They are about $10 billion worth. And then he's saying India uses our dollars to buy discounted Russian crude. So they are using, I mean, this is so literally moronic. So fine, it's like saying, I sell you this pen for $5 and you sell me one pencil for $1 and I have a $4 surplus. Those are not your $4. That is the cost of the pen that you bought from me. You have my pen. That's why I have your $5. So this idea that India has money is, first of all, it's ridiculous. India doesn't have the money. The people who sold the carpets, they have the money. The companies that sold the drugs, they have the money. The people who made jewels and sold jewels and diamonds in India, they have the money. It's not the oil companies who have that money. So it's a kind of a very ridiculous argument, childish. Even like a 5th grader will understand the stupidity of this argument, that the surplus is the cash that India is using to buy. You think if India didn't have the surplus, Ambani didn't have enough money to borrow from Indian banks, which eventually Modi would then waive off, and then he would buy oil from Russia. This is ridiculous. Ambani could borrow the money from the US stock market or US banks to buy the oil if he shows how much profit he's making. So this is so ridiculous. This is a stupid argument. And according to the US estimates, India has made only $26 billion of profit in 2.5 years. $26 billion, let's say all of that went to Russia. Even then, that is nothing compared to the $300-400 billion that the US and Europe has given to Ukraine in this war. So if you look at this, if this is, and by the way, all these images that he has used are generated either by Grok or Chat GPT. These are childish icon, they call infographics that these AI programs have generated. You can see that from the first photograph of Donald Trump holding the 50% tariff. It's AI generated image. He must have some assistant who has a professional membership to Chat GPT. So the second slide, I want to show you his fifth one. I think this is the fifth. No, this is the fifth one. Then he says, India's big oil lobby has turned the largest democracy in the world into a massive refining hub and oil money laundromat from the Kremlin. I don't know what this guy was like. He must have really been smoking something when he wrote this. It's as if the whole country has become a refinery. No, they are just importing about $140 billion worth of oil, and only 1/3 of that comes from Russia. The rest is coming from Iraq and Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, and even from the United States. India has started buying oil from the US. So only 1/3 or 40% of India's oil comes from Russia. And so I find this is like, I don't know who he's talking to. This can't be something for India. This can't be for the Indian government. This is probably for, he thinks that the most members of MAGA are stupid and they will buy this. These days, the MAGA guys appear to be much more smarter than the people in the Trump administration. They have seen how the Israeli lobby controls the Trump administration. They can see the difference between Israel first policies and US first policies. They fully understand that many of Donald Trump's policies are kind of weird and inconsistent. Like, for example, 600,000 students, Chinese students who are now suddenly going to get visas, is driving the MAGA crowds wild. Suddenly, Marjorie Taylor Greene has become a profound intellectual. Tucker Carlson has become a brave man. They're going to kick his ass, his own people. And so I think this is so ridiculous. Peter Navarro, a Harvard economist, writing stuff like this, I find that equal. I need to figure out the sequence of this. The next tweet that I want to show is his seventh tweet, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the seventh one. Yeah, and then he says, while the United States pays to arm Ukraine, India bankrolls Russia even as it slaps some of the world's highest tariffs on US goods, which in turn punishes American exporters. This whole connection between the trade deficit and India's buying and selling oil is absolutely rubbish. There is no connection to the two of them. India could stop buying all oil today. If you go back to 2021, when India was buying only 1% of its oil was coming from Russia, and instead of $67 billion, India-Russia trade was like $7 or $8 billion. India had a huge surplus over the US. The US had a huge deficit with India. So this desperate attempt to connect India's Russia oil trade with the deficit is absolutely idiotic. We run a $50 billion trade deficit with India, and they're using our dollars to buy Russian oil. That's the foolish point. They're not your dollars. Once you've bought things from India, they are Indian dollars. If they sold you a carpet, that money does not belong to you. India can do whatever it wants with that money. So this whole assumption that they're using our dollars, they're not yours once you've bought things. I'm telling you, this guy was on some LSD or something when he wrote this. So I'm going to look at his eighth one. This is part of his 9 tweets that he sent out, the string, a thread of 9 tweets. In the 8th one, he says, it doesn't stop there. India continues to buy Russian weapons while demanding that US firms transfer sensitive military tech and build plants in India. That is strategic freeloading. Like, what does he mean by strategic freeloading? I mean, this is so rubbish. If you all who have been following conversations, if you remember, I've been telling you that India has been steadily diversifying away from Russia, About 5 years ago, 70% of all India's military shopping was done in Russia. India was buying Russian jets, so the Sukhoi 30 and in the MiGs, and then buying supply parts for the MiGs, for servicing the MiGs that are flying. India's tanks, I think T-72s they are called, they're all from Russia. Then, of course, India was also buying S-400s. India was buying a lot of weapons, but now India has steadily moved away. Now India buys from Israel and India buys from France. So now India has gone from 70 to 50 or even less than 50% of all its armament that it imports comes from Russia. So this is dishonest, to say the least. And as far as technology transfer is concerned, look, whether the US does the technology transfer or not is a different thing. It's a decision for the companies who have generated the technology, and for the United States also, who gives a lot of subsidies to these companies in terms of tax breaks as well as research funds, etc., to decide. So I'm not saying that the US should give away technology for free, but I also want to tell them that that has always been India's plan. India has always said we want to become Atmanirbhar, we want technology. So BrahMos, for example, is India's, I mean, India tried to say that it is Indian missiles, but it's actually Russian technology transferred to India and manufactured in India. So in BrahMos, the Brah is Indian, Mos is Russian. So India is not just buying Russian stuff. India is also buying Russian technology, as it has made requests of Indian technology. But I would give Peter Navarro a pass because I don't think he knows any of these things. He just thinks he has got a smart point, which he does not have. And this is his last point. In this last point, I mean, he also uses Narendra Modi's photograph for this, which has already been criticized heavily by some Indian commentators. I have nothing to say about that. If that is how Modi wants to pose to get votes at home, then I think he deserves to get international attention also. So anyway, the Biden admin largely looked the other way at this madness. That is to some extent true. But if you notice that even though Eric Garcetti, Biden's ambassador to India, did say that America had requested India to buy oil and balance trade, but if you remember, even during the last 1.5 years of Biden's administration, both the Americans and the Europeans in particular and Ukraine were constantly asking India not to buy Russian oil. So this whole business of America trying to pressure Europe, trying to pressure India. See, it's not just Donald Trump who has imposed sanctions on India. The European Union has also imposed sanctions on India in the last month and a half. So it is not fair to say the Biden looked the other way. Biden just didn't put as much pressure as Donald Trump is, because what Donald Trump is doing is also going to hurt the long-standing India-America strategic partnership that Biden valued. And most American policy people do want to see a good relation between India and the US. But Trump administration, which initially did, has now simply decided, and that is the perplexing part, right? Is this all just because India does not acknowledge that Trump played an important part in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan during Operation Sindoor? Or is there something more to this? I mean, the explanation for the huge impact of what Donald Trump has done is taken the wrecking ball to India-US relations. That is not enough of an explanation. So anyway, he ends by saying, if India, the world's largest democracy, wants to be treated like a strategic partner of the US, it needs to act like one. This is, I don't know what to say, really. What does it mean to act like a strategic partner? India was acting like a strategic partner. Haven't you watched conversations, you moron? I think Peter the moron should go and watch all the conversations, especially the ones where the Andhbhaks come and attack me. Haven't I repeatedly said that the United States is acting as the voice of Israel and America in all international forums? Modi says he's the voice of the global South, but he votes with the global North. India has voted with Israel and the US in the UN Security Council, in BRICS, in SCO, everywhere. India has done a lot to promote US and Israeli interests. India has been acting as the United States' strategic partner. I mean, I have said this so many times that even when the SCO issued a statement against Israel and America attacking Iran, India subverted that. India has continued to provide weapons to Israel during this entire Gaza war. India has continued to play along with the US in every Quad summit, every 2x2, that is Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, Ministry of External Affairs and Minister of Defense. All of these summits all over the world, India has participated in military training, etc. All of that. So India has acted as a strategic partner of the US more than it has acted as a strategic partner of Russia or China or BRICS or SCO or Iran. India simply abandoned Iran at the pressure of the United States. India abandoned the Palestinians. India is the only country where none of the speakers of parliament, anybody is cursing Israel for committing a genocide. Look at the Europeans, they turned their back. The US government is not issuing visas to the Palestinian delegation to the UN because European countries are now going to recognize the Palestinian state, especially Great Britain and France. India has done no such thing at all just to keep America happy. So I think Peter Navarro neither knows the current geopolitics, nor does he know much about India-US relations and everything that India has been doing for the US, and he completely misunderstands the meaning of trade deficit. So I'm going to stop with that. That is my take about this Peter the Moron. So I will take a few questions and comments because it's already 12:30 in Chicago time, so it's about 1:30 my time. But I will be happy to take your questions and comments. If there are some members, I will give you the first opportunity. But anyway, let's go through it. Neelkant Sahu, good morning to you, Neelkant. Neelkant is Shiva, right? Shiva the guy. Shiva with the blue second, let me get just rid of this. Okay, yes. Yeah, hi Neelkant, how are you? Anurag, thanks for joining. Anurag is always there. Very good question. Anurag Parikh always asks good questions. So according to the US Constitution, the government is divided into three equal branches, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. The president executes the laws, the Congress makes the laws, and it's a job of the Supreme Court and the judiciary to make sure that the laws are according to the Constitution. But lately, especially with the Republicans who control both the Supreme Court as well as the legislature, which is the House, the Republicans control everything in the US today. They have the White House, they have the Congress, they have the Senate, and they have a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court. And so they have basically abdicated their responsibility to do checks and balances. So there is no checks and balances. The Supreme Court is not checking the president. The Senate is not. The House is not. And so in effect, you are right. The US, even though is supposed to be a democracy, it's behaving like a dictatorship, especially if the parliament has become totally useless. I completely agree with you, Anurag. Gautam Shahi, sir, how do you see Trump and his team's conduct, behavior, and policies impacting long-term interests of US? Oh, that's a very good question. See, I'm telling you this much. I have a prediction that 60 to 70% he's going to fail miserably. And the failure could be so bad that the Republicans could get wiped out in November next year. But with each passing day, the Democrats are looking stupider and stupider and dumber, except Newsom in California, who is acting and making fun of Trump, etc. The rest of them are just interested in only pushing Israeli agenda. Schumer says his job is to make sure that the left in America is pro-Israel. He doesn't think that his job is to give new ideas to the Democratic Party. He doesn't think that his job is to balance the America. He doesn't think his job is to protect the middle class, working class of America. So most of the Democrats have taken a lot of money from AIPAC, and they're keeping quiet and doing nothing. And the approval rating of the Democrats is so bad, it's like 19%. And they are 5 million short in terms of signing new voters, and they're not able to raise money. So Trump could win because the opposition is so pathetic. The Republicans might still retain, and now they are adding 5 seats in Texas. So, but nevertheless, there are lots of horrible things that are happening in this country because of Trump's policy. So now no Republican is able to hold a press conference or even a town hall meeting. They are being booed by their own supporters. So Donald Trump could turn out to be a failure. But if by some fluke, somehow, look, in spite of the tariffs, the stock market is booming in the US, okay? So if the stock market continues to boom, the rich people are going to be happy. And if he's successful in bringing back some manufacturing jobs, and if American economy, if there are so many ifs, then yeah, I think he will be one of the greatest presidents of the United States. If Donald Trump is successful in reindustrializing the US, that will be a huge, huge achievement. If he was not such a nasty person and doing a lot of other rubbish, like on the visa issues, student issues, the way they are arresting people, they're being cruel in their policies, then I would have given credit for trying something very ambitious, like reindustrializing the US. But we'll see. We'll start getting a picture by next year. This time we should be, I will be able to give you a more definitive answer about where this is going. But right now, I'm saying 70% chance that he will fail, but 30% chance that it might just work. Who knows? Srikant, you have a good question. Doman, good morning to you too. Courts say that tariffs are illegal. Is that correct? Yes. So first of all, tariffs is not the the US Constitution, if you look at it, it's very small. You should take a look at it. I think it is Article 8. I think there it defines the, just take a look at it, it defines the powers and authority of the Congress, the power and authority of the president. So the power of imposing tariffs is Congress only. Only Congress can impose tariffs, not Trump. But they did pass a law, an emergency law, in which it says that the president can, under specific emergency circumstances, impose sanctions in the form of tariffs. So Donald Trump, that's why he declared an emergency first. If you remember, he declared a national emergency, national security emergency, economic security emergency, and then he has been using that law to actually create tariffs. I can guarantee you, if this was a Democrat majority in the House and the Senate, then he would not have been able to do that. They would not allow it. Or even if it was 5-4 in the Supreme Court, I can tell you that they would have blocked it. Because what Donald Trump is doing is not constitutional at all. But because both the Congress and the judiciary have abdicated completely, they have surrendered, and it's sounding really, really stupid. But you're right, the courts are right that this is what he's doing is illegal and unconstitutional. Oh, Ismail, how are you from Atlanta? Ismail, how are you doing? I'm in Chicago at this conference. I was wondering if you have ever attended it. So maybe next year, or if you're here, then we should meet at the convention. I'm at the ISNA convention in Chicago. I'm speaking on Indian Muslims tomorrow. You must have seen the flyer. So your question is, can this state of India-US relations? Ismail is one of the biggest supporters of conversations. He's a IT person from India. He lives in Atlanta. Can the state of India-US relations change past midterm reality check of Trump? So look, there's a Hindi phrase that says, "Ghadi mein tola, ghadi mein masha." He's very mercurial, Donald Trump. And he has a very short-term memory. He can forget everything very quickly. So let's say hypothetically that the war ends in a month or two, he could immediately remove sanctions on India, or something else happens, like Zelensky is meeting with Trump, with Putin, and he suddenly gets excited and feels that there is no need for this. He could lift that and lift us 25%. But I think India should continue to pursue a trade deal with the US, no matter how badly that, because even if the 25% of the punitive sanctions are removed, you're still stuck with the other 25%, isn't it? The reciprocal. So even there, a lot of Indian exporters are going to be at a disadvantage with Pakistan and Bangladesh and Vietnam, who are all at 20%. Indonesia is at 19%. I don't think we compete much with Indonesia, but Vietnam, yes. With Pakistan and Bangladesh in some sectors, yes, we do compete, and our small scale industries will be at a disadvantage, or India's. So I think that India should continue to push for that bilateral trade agreement, and come up with some creative ways to deal with it. He's having some hiccups with both the deals that were. See, Donald Trump is in a rush to claim success. So none of the deals that have been announced are fully negotiated. So, for example, the deal with Great Britain, which was announced very quickly, 10% tariffs, these are all broad frameworks. The details haven't been discussed. So if you notice, the Japanese negotiator who was supposed to come this week to finalize decided to postpone it by 1 or 2 weeks, because there is no clarity on profit sharing of Japan's investments, etc. So in that sense, that it is quite possible that Donald Trump may be getting more and more frustrated. But it is quite possible that if those deals work, he might be in a good mood and he could resolve the issues with India. So I don't know whether Modi is going to come to New York for the UN General Assembly meeting. He's right now in Japan. And please see my review of his preview of his visit to Japan. So we don't know whether Modi will come to New York, and the second, if is, will there be a bilateral between Modi and Trump? We have reports which have neither been confirmed by the Indian government nor by the US government that Donald Trump has tried to call Modi several times, but Modi is afraid to talk to him because he thinks that he may say one thing, then Donald Trump might misrepresent him. So, and Donald Trump can do that after a meeting with him, unless they have a live meeting on camera, like the meeting with Zelensky. So maybe Modi can say, let's meet and call the press people in and try to have a negotiations. And I can guarantee you, if Modi meets Trump, there is a pretty good chance that he could talk Trump out of trying to reduce one of the two tariffs, because Trump likes to show that the meetings have been successful. So, and one way to show success is that he will reduce the tariffs, because if he feels the need to, if he says the meeting was a failure, then he will be under pressure to raise the tariffs, right? So that is where we are at the moment. So the next opportunity will be when Modi comes to the UN General Assembly meeting soon. Court says that, yeah, it's down there. FTW1, India is now Ukraine's largest diesel supplier. I don't know. Let me check on that and get back to you. Is that Russian crude that India is processing and exporting to Ukraine? That would be funny. That's a good one, Sinha. That's a really good one. I don't know what Peter Navarro is trying to do. So I was watching, what is his name? Raghuram Rajan, the former RBI director, who's now a professor in the University of Chicago. So he was saying that Peter Navarro's article in the Financial Times, in which he first makes this argument about India and Russia, oil, etc. And that article was published 3-4 days ago. And I actually did a whole show on that particular article. You can go back and look at it. So Raghuram Rajan is saying that that Peter Navarro would not write this article without getting an okay from the White House. And this tweet, I am sure that it has to be approved by J.D. Vance or Trump or Rubio or somebody in the White House has to say, that yes, go ahead with this tweet. Because if somebody in the administration, like if J.D. Vance or Rubio were trying to patch up with India at the same time, and then this guy drops these stupid Twitter bombs, then it would upset some of the negotiations. So one thing we should assume that everything that Peter Navarro is saying on television, where he called this Modi's war, and then he did this tweet, and etc. All of that has White House approval, because he is, after all, Trump's trade advisor and White House economic and trade advisor. So that tweet would have been seen by people before it was sent, and so basically he's not going to get into trouble with the White House for saying that. That's the point. AK, hello AK, good morning, sir, to you too. Manohar Gajanan, nice name, thank you. Sharad Chandra, if Ambani is buying oil and making money, then what is wrong? Well, I'll tell you what is wrong. Ambani probably made $16 billion in 2 years. And now hundreds of thousands and lakhs of people will lose their jobs because of the tariffs. But Ambani is not going to lose anything. He may stop making profits if India stops buying oil. But the cost of Ambani's profits, very poor people are going to make. People who are working in the shrimp export business, people who are working in the carpet export business, people who are working in the small. I was on the show with Dinesh Vora, and he was saying he had talked about some businessman who made 600,000 undergarments, and now he can't export it, and he will have to fire all these tailors and other stuff. So if you're okay with lakhs of Indians losing jobs and Ambani making money, then good for you. But I'm sure there are lots and lots of people who will not be happy about it. Lakhs of people who are losing their jobs. Okay, Hitesh, how are you? Rahul, Peter Navarro is USS. Yes, I agree. He's like that. Yeah, he is becoming like that. He's like the Chanakya dialogues of the White House. AK, oil has become cheaper in the global market with people. Yes, I have said this. I did this many times. I have said this. India has not extended the same discount. Let me tell you this, okay? I was talking to some people in Delhi, and I asked them what was the price of petrol in Delhi, and they were saying 105 rupees or something, where they were buying per liter. And where I live in Delaware, I was paying 83 rupees per liter, $3 and something per gallon. I paid $3. Today I just bought gas while I was driving to the airport, and I paid $3.50 of the better quality oil, petrol. So you can do the math. It comes to like 85 or 86 paisa. 85, 86 rupees per liter of petrol, and you are paying more than what I pay. So imagine all the talk about PPP, purchasing power parity, etc. So yes, the Indian government said that we are buying it for our poor people, but they didn't. The businessmen exported it and made money, but you got no discounts. The discount that India got from Russia was not extended to the consumers in India at all. And for that, you need to ask your government questions. I have said this many times on the show. You need to ask your government why they did not do that. Sharad, America's oil companies are making money. Yes, they are. They're also making a lot of money from Europe by forcing Europe to buy more expensive LNG and gas from the US. You're right about that. Ambani is not earning for his country. Yeah, what rubbish you guys talk about. Ambani is making money for himself. They are, round tripping the money to avoid taxes. They take the money abroad to Mauritius, then bring it back to India. Mauritius per capita total GDP is $15 billion, and it is the biggest investor in India, something like $300 billion FDI. How does that happen? It's because people like Ambani and Adani do what is called as round tripping. So they are not paying taxes. Nobody is benefiting from their profits. Okay, especially they're not paying taxes. If they were paying taxes, at least you could say, fine, they are paying some 18% GST or whatever. They're not paying taxes. I don't know why people think that India is making lots of billionaires in the US. They're making money, but people are poor. Remember, half of America's per capita is $150,000, and the other half is $19,000. They are so poor. If tomorrow Elon Musk makes another $40 billion on the stock market, it doesn't help anybody else in America unless he's taxed. And then the government gets, say, 15% of that 40 billion. He gets 6%, $6 billion, and they use that to invest in universities and education. Then people benefit. But if he takes that money and pushes it in a bank in Switzerland or buys a big boat, no, nobody benefits. Raj Rai, thank you for asking a very good question. This is so far the best question of the day. The reason what the Modi government is doing is, everybody comes here and they talk about America's debt. That, oh my God, America is $37 trillion in debt, which is about 1.3% of its GDP. America's GDP is 30 trillion, its debt is 37. India's debt to GDP ratio has now reached 0.9%. 90%. So India's GDP is about $4 trillion. India's debt is about $3.6, $3.7 trillion. So Indian governments are doing a lot of these Labharti programs, Prime Minister's this Yojana, sending 5 kilos of free rice to about 800 million people. India sends free rations to 2 Europes every month. And then that is not, if you go back and look at the show I did, which is the biggest communist, whether Modi, Trump, or Mamdani, who is the biggest. So in that I have a whole list of all the Labharti programs, the socialist, communist type welfare programs that India has. Farmers get 6,000 rupees, 110 million farmers, 11 crore farmers get 6,000 rupees per month. For one farmer, it's not too much. 6,000 rupees is what? Nothing. Right? But you add that to 11 crores. So just imagine 66 crores, 1,000 times 66,000 crores are given away to farmers. Where's that money coming from? From your taxes and from those profits and from borrowing. If these Labhartis continue for another 4 or 5 years, you will see India will also be in the same kind of a debt problem that the US is. And all the developed countries are. Japan, GDP is $4 trillion. Japan's debt is $10 trillion. It's 250%. So that's a good question. Why is the government not extending that? Because they're using that. So for example, this year in the budget, the government said that we will not charge income tax to people who make like 12 lakh rupees per year. So 1 lakh, I think you will not pay taxes. So the government is losing some money, right? How does it offset that loss? Maybe from the oil revenues, which it is not extending to the citizens. Oh yes, NAF, Ukraine hamla ghair qanuni hai. Yeah, so like what's the point? Oh, you're supporting the US. So you think the US giving money to Ukraine and getting all the Ukrainian skill is justified? I don't think so. Yes, again, Raj Rai, you are in the form. Today, you are the man of the match. The second question is also good. Oil pricing, cost of petroleum gas is fundamental, because imagine all the rice that comes from wherever it does, all the wheat that is grown in Punjab, that goes all over the country in India, it's going in trucks, it's going in trains, there's cost of transportation. If the price of oil goes up, the cost of transportation of all goods goes up, the cost of transportation of individuals, everything is connected to the price of oil. It's not just that gas is expensive. Your milk will become expensive because the milk is coming from the farm to the city. So if you reduce the price of choice, remember when Donald Trump became president, the inflation went down because the price of oil went down. And because of this connection between transportation and other aspects of energy, if you're heating your houses using oil and gas, the factories that are manufacturing things, they are using gas. So it's not just transportation, a lot of things. The cost of making things becomes less because energy is cheaper. I don't know who Ejaz Khan is talking about. Daily Quiz is talking about, yes, the US wanted recognition of Donald Trump. And of course, I don't think that Donald Trump would be happy with India even if India stops buying oil. I think there's more going on. We'll talk about that some other time. Neeraj said it's a bit too late, but let's say that Modi meets Trump at the UN and then comes out and say that, oh, we had such a great discussion and President Trump has decided to reduce India's reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 10%. And that shows that Trump is a peacemaker, and so we will nominate him for Nobel Prize. That will be a good deal. I think we should do that. Venkayalapati, that's a tough question. I don't know whether the Quad summit will happen or not. The only guy who's been saying positive things about Quad is, to some extent, Rubio, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth, when he was in Singapore, he talked about the United States' continued commitment to the Indo-Pacific and to the Quad, etc. So the summit of the heads of states for the Quad is going to be in India this year. And I'm telling you very clearly, it's going to be affected by what happens tomorrow and day after tomorrow when Modi meets with Putin and Xi Jinping, and then we'll see what happens, what comes out of that. India is going to be the BRICS president after next year. So if Trump comes to India for the Quad summit, then I think Quad will survive. Even though the Japanese Prime Minister and Modi talked about Quad, I don't think that without the US, there is no Quad. Without India, there is a Squad with Philippines. But without the US, there is no Quad, there is no Squad. So it is very important that Donald Trump comes. I think Quad will survive even if Donald Trump does not come, but JD Vance comes. And also don't forget that there are some questions being raised about Donald Trump's health. Apparently there's some mark on his hand. He's suffering from some kind of an illness, some sickness. I don't know what it is. And JD Vance was asked this question by, I think, USA Today, and he said very clearly that Trump is very healthy, very energetic, blah, blah, blah. But if something happens to Trump, I'm ready. So JD Vance is already thinking about it, and he thinks he's ready to be president. So I think if Trump sends JD Vance to Quad in his place, India should go ahead and host it anyway. And I think it is important because it appears that he's going to be the strongest candidate other than Newsom in the next election, which is not far away. Oh yes, dark matter. I saw that 7.8%. India's GDP growth rate. See, there are four things that go into GDP. One is government spending. One is consumer spending. So if you and I and all of us buy a lot of it, like I drink this, so I buy 10 of these for one show instead of one, which means that Gatorade will make more Gatorade and sell more Gatorade, more transport, etc. So more public consumption, GDP goes up. The government spends money, builds roads, etc. The money goes up, economy goes up, and GDP growth rate. The third one is investments, money coming from outside, money coming from inside, domestic investments, private investments, etc. What the government spends is government investments. So three things so far, okay? Consumption, domestic consumption, government spending, and investments. And the fourth thing is the difference between export and import. If your imports are more than your exports, it reduces your growth rate. And if your exports are more than your imports, then it helps increase. So for example, in the second quarter for the US, it went from negative in the first quarter, negative half, to 3% in the second quarter. It went is because of tariffs, the imports to the US have decreased. And that is having a positive impact on the GDP. So India 7.8. Look, I just saw that number. I've not seen it. About a month ago, I did India's trade. India's trade has gone up by 47%. So India has exported more in the first quarter, or the April to June quarter. So that has had a positive impact. Now, the real key, the most important thing is actually domestic consumption. That should be the driver, and investments. Not government spending. Government spending can be problematic. Both India and China, their growth is because of government spending, which is investment, government building roads, infrastructure, etc. But government spending means the government is either taxing people or borrowing money. It's not like Saudi Arabia or UAE, where the money is just pouring out of the earth, right? They have natural resources like oil, and they can sell, and so there's government spending, and their GDP will grow. So I will take a look at it. I'll also talk to a couple of economists, and we'll take a close look at it. So I might do a show maybe Monday, Tuesday when I get back. I'm getting back to Delaware, and it'll take me about 3-4 days to put. For me, I need to investigate also. Otherwise, I can't ask intelligent questions without knowing exactly what has happened. And lately the Indian government is making it more and more difficult to find out statistics and facts about various things. For example, I'm here talking about Indian Muslims at this conference, and I was trying to find data on unemployment and employment of Muslims in India and their income. It was so difficult to find income. There's no way to find income. The way you find income is by consumption. So you look at how much money Muslims are spending, and Hindus and others. We have data for that, how much money they are spending per month. And we use that as a measure for income, which is not true. So difficult. Data is far more difficult. In fact, it is so difficult to find out India's service exports. Try it. Google, it'll take you like 1 second to find out what is India's merchandise exports to any part of the world. But try find out what is India's exports to the US and services. It's very difficult to get an accurate figure. AK Huff, thank you very much. AR geopolitics, Mr. Khan, Indians and Indo. Oh, come on. People in India can lynch Muslims. AR geopolitics. They can lynch Muslims. They can rape Muslim women, and they are considered people with unche sanskar. Okay? Go and Google Bilqis Bano's rapists. The Prime Minister's office told the prisons to let Bilqis Bano's rapists go free. There are people who kill you just because they think you had a burger, and that is not even true. So please don't give me this, okay? Just a few weeks ago, the Ahmedabad government in April bulldozed 8,000 Muslims and made 8,000 Muslim families homeless without any court evaluation of cases and proving that their homes were illegal or anything. So please don't give me this rubbish. absolute rubbish your comments are. I agree, AK Huff, you're very, very true. Modi has never got 40% of the vote of India. 60% of Indians have never voted for Modi and BJP. And by the way, unlike the US president who is elected by the whole country, Prime Minister Modi just got votes in Varanasi. And he was lagging behind this time. There's a lot of talk about vote chori. So don't get me distracted. Hi, Ismail. Thank you very much for your support. You continue to support Conversations. What rubbish! Kishore Kumar has lost his mind. It's Donald Trump that is imposing tariffs, and he's not imposing tariffs on Ambani because he's Hindu. He imposed tariffs on India, the whole country. That includes everybody, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, everybody. Who told you that he's targeting Hindus? I don't know where these people are coming from. AR geopolitics, I know I've said many times that the United States, Canada, Russia, and Saudi Arabia are the fourth biggest producers of oil. India, the US is completely need not be dependent at all. We stopped buying Middle East oil long ago. We are also a major exporter of oil, for your kind information. Yes, we do import from Canada, but it's a bit complicated. We import as well as we export. Yes. If the US wants, if we take off the environmental restrictions, we can. It's, I think, only Russia and the Saudis, maybe even Canada has more oil, but there's no other country which comes anywhere near the US, none of the other Gulf countries. We also invented fracking, remember? All right, the quality of questions are going down. Samir, sir. Oh, that's a very difficult question, Samir, whether we will go back. A lot of people who comment about it, who have been studying India-US relations for a long time from the Indian perspective, are very upset. There are lots of people who say that Donald Trump has done permanent damage to India-US relations. India has always been suspicious of the US. And for the last 25 years, all the presidents were working very hard to build confidence, and Donald Trump in 1 month has completely destroyed 25 years of hard work of building confidence in India-US relations. But there's a lot of synergy, there's a lot of advantage to being a US partner that Indians have benefited. All the Indian students prefer to come to the US is the first choice of all Indian students. US is the first choice of all Indian IT people. US is the first choice of Narendra Modi. You know how many times he came to the US? 11 times. How many times did he go to the best friend, Russia? Only once, Kazan. Before that, maybe 2-3 times, that's it, in the last 11 years. He hasn't gone to China in the last 7 years. This was his first visit to Japan for the Japan-India summit in 7 years. How many times did he come to the US? 11 times. So even for politicians, India is the chair. For RSS and the Sanghis, it seems they prefer the US over any other partner. So US is the first choice for many Indian businessmen, Indian investors, people who want. In fact, when the golden visa thing comes out, $5 million to get an American green card, lots of people are saying that perhaps the biggest buyers will be Indians. Just watch out. I guarantee you all these people. Look at Dr. Jaishankar's family. They work and live here. His son lives in DC. His brother lives in LA. So, yeah. America is the first choice of India, not Russia or China or Japan. Yeah, viral war, that's what I told you. The India's the debt to GDP ratio is 1.3, but it's compared to India is 0.9, 0.9. It's not as if the other countries are not. Japan is 2.5. China is the same as India, 0.9. But the debt to GDP ratio of these countries will also grow. it's not bad to have. My debt to GDP ratio is, yeah, I think I'm like Japan, 250%. So the mortgage on my house and my cars is 2.5 times my salary right now. And 5, 10 years ago, it was 4 times my salary. It didn't mean I collapsed. It was 400%. I don't know what you do, Viral War, but if there are people here who have bought a house on mortgage and have bought a car, you do your debt to GDP income ratio, and you'll see the US is better than you, than most people. No, inflation is not low. It's like 3%, I think 2.1%. All right, guys, it's very late, so thank you very much for watching Conversations, and thank you for your support. Thank you for all the members, AK, Samir, Neelkant, and Ismail for joining. Ismail, thank you for your gift. And please, guys, subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and do share it with your social political network. I would love to see Conversations Global reach 200,000 before the end of the year, and Conversations India to reach 50,000. Day before yesterday, Conversations India crossed 25,000 subscribers, and all of this in less than 5 weeks or 6 weeks. So thank you very much for all of your support. Now I need to go and sleep because I have to get up early and prepare for my talk. Take care. Bye.